Hi there, all you Thomas fans. I'm reading a collection of Thomas and Friends stories featuring the All Engines Go versions of the characters. I had a hard time finding this book, so I hope you really enjoy it. Inside the book are 5 really exciting stories about Thomas, Percy, Diesel, Nia, Kana, Sandy, Carly, and all of their friends. So hop on the rails and settle in for some great stories about teamwork and friendship. All aboard for Thomas and Friends 5-Minute Stories. Where's Percy? Based on a story by Peter Gaffney, adapted by Ellen Philpott. It was a special day for Thomas. He was making his 10,000th delivery. "I'm going to be awarded a special sticker," Thomas said. "Everybody is going to be at Brendam Docks to celebrate," Percy said. "You'll have to give a speech." Thomas wondered what he would say in a speech. "Maybe I could tell a joke," Thomas muttered to himself. He was so busy worrying about his speech that he didn't notice he had pulled ahead of Percy. "Thomas, wait for me!" Percy called out. Thomas didn't hear. He just vanished around the bend. Percy tried to catch up with Thomas, but Percy lost his balance when he came to the bend. "Whoa!" Percy cried as he fell. Percy landed at the bottom of the hill. "Thomas!" he called. There was no reply. He tried to charge back up the hill, but it was too steep. Meanwhile, Thomas rolled into Brendam Docks, where Kana, Nia, and Diesel gave him a big cheer. "Congratulations on making 10,000 deliveries, Thomas," Sir Topham Hatt said. Thomas turned to grin at Percy, but his friend was nowhere to be seen. "Where's Percy?" asked Thomas. Thomas felt terrible. He realized that he hadn't been paying attention to Percy at all. "The award will have to wait," he said. "I must go and find my friend." Thomas went to check the recycling plant. "I can't find Percy," he told Bruno. "Think about every stop you've made today, and when you've made it. Where did you last see him?" asked Bruno. Bruno continued, "That's always a good way to find something, and it works for friends, too." "I know Percy was with me when we went past Crumble Canyon. I'll check there," Thomas replied. At Crumble Canyon, Thomas spotted a Percy-shaped hole in the ledge. Percy must have fallen off the track. "Don't worry, Percy, I'm coming," Thomas called. Thomas bravely leaped off the tracks. At the bottom, he picked himself up, determined to make sure Percy was safe. Meanwhile, Percy had gotten lost. He made his way down an old, overgrown track with a junction. In one direction stood a dark, gloomy old tunnel. In the other was a huge, muddy puddle. Percy didn't know which way to go. At the tunnel entrance, he trembled at the dark shadows. "No, it's too dark for me in there," Percy said. "Anyway, I don't mind a bit of lovely mud." He zoomed down the other track and straight through the big muddy puddle. Splish! Soon, Thomas arrived at the same junction. Which way did Percy go? He wondered. Then he set off through the huge puddle. Splash! As Percy chugged on, the track split again. One way there was a long, winding track through a deep valley. The other way led to a big, swaying bridge. Percy shuddered as he chose the bridge. It was the quickest way back to Brendam Docks. As Percy started to cross the bridge, it made a loud creaking sound. Then it started to sway. "No, I don't like this," Percy said, and he chugged off into the valley instead. When Thomas pulled up to the junction, he took one look at the swaying, creaking bridge and headed down into the valley. He knew that Percy didn't like heights. Down in the valley, Percy heard a cheerful noise. "Quack, quack." "I love ducks," Percy said, and headed in the direction of the quacking. Thomas was just behind Percy but didn't know it. Thomas was starting to feel a little gloomy, but then he heard the quacking. "Percy loves ducks," Thomas said. "He's gone that way." At last, Thomas spotted his friend up ahead. Percy was delighted. "How did you find me?" "Well, I knew you wouldn't go through that scary tunnel," Thomas said, "and you don't like heights, so you wouldn't have gone over the bridge. And then I heard the ducks, so I knew you would have come this way." "You know me so well, Thomas," Percy said. "I'm sorry I didn't pay attention earlier," Thomas said. "I was too busy thinking about my speech." "Let's go," Percy said, and they zoomed to Brendam Docks. "Thomas, you made it," said Sir Topham Hatt. "I am delighted to award you this special sticker." "But wait, you're covered in mud." "He got in a mess trying to find me," Percy said. "You're lucky to have such a good friend," said Sir Topham Hatt. "But maybe Thomas should have a wash before he gets his special award." "I think that would be a good idea," Thomas agreed, and all his friends laughed and cheered. The end. The Mystery of Lookout Mountain, based on a story by Craig Carlisle and Daniel Scherstrom, adapted by Ellen Philpott. One morning, Thomas and Percy arrived at the old mine to collect carts. "Are you sure this is a good idea?" Percy asked. "Diesel said something about a mine monster." Just then, there was a loud rumble. The ground started to shake, and one of the carts disappeared down a dark tunnel. "Ah! What was that?" Percy yelled. Meanwhile, at Whiff's recycling plant, Diesel was out delivering scrap when Thomas and Percy roared in. They were out of breath. "We were at the old mine, and there was a rumbling, and one of our carts disappeared," cried Percy. "Ever since the old mine opened, strange things have started happening," Whiff explained, "like carts going missing." Diesel gasped. "It must be the mine monster." Everybody wanted to solve the mystery. They split up into teams to look for clues. Thomas, Bruno, Percy, and Sandy would go to Lookout Mountain. Nia, Carly, Diesel, and Kana would go to the old mine. The two teams, the Lookout Mountaineers and the Cave Crawlers, set off to solve the mystery of the disappearing carts. Percy pulled his biggest adventure machine up the steep mountain track. The Lookout Mountaineers searched high and low, but there was no sign of any secret entrances. Suddenly, Percy noticed that his biggest adventure machine was missing. Meanwhile, in the old mine, the cave crawlers had discovered a pile of broken carts. Perched on top of the pile was a truck. "How did you get in here?" Nia asked. "I was playing a trick on James yesterday," the truck answered. "Suddenly, the mountain started rumbling, and I rolled down a tunnel and crashed here." "Mysterious," Carly said. "We'd better check where this next tunnel leads." Back on Lookout Mountain, Percy, Thomas, and Bruno searched for the biggest adventure machine. "Maybe Percy's machine went under the waterfall," Bruno said. "Wow, Bruno! I think you found a secret entrance into the mountain!" cried Thomas. Everybody splashed through the water. and landed inside a sparkling cave. "Hey guys, look," Thomas said. "There's a tunnel over here that leads deeper into the mountain. Let's see where it goes." In the old mine, Kana led the team down another tunnel. "Hey, that looks like Percy's biggest adventure machine," Nia said. "That means the two mines must be connected," Carly said. Just then, the tracks started shaking and tipping. Meanwhile, Thomas and his team entered a strange cavern. There was a turntable in the middle with tracks leading to more tunnels. They could hear an eerie, echoing scream. Just then, the tracks started shaking and tipping around the cave crawlers. Down, down, down they fell. They landed with a bump on the turntable, which spun them round and round. "Oh, where are we?" cried Kana. "Look, it's the other team," Thomas said. "Lookout Mountain and the old mine must be connected," Diesel said. "What's that bright light coming down the tunnel toward us?" asked Percy. Roaring out of the dark came Percy's biggest adventure machine. In the light from the machine, the engines saw a lot of broken carts. "That's where the missing carts went," Thomas said. "Guys, over here," Sandy called. "This looks like a freshly dug tunnel." In the dark of the tunnel, a pair of large, red eyes appeared. "Run! It's the mine monster!" shouted Carly. The mine monster burst out of the tunnel. It watched as the engines raced to leave the mines. The mine monster sighed. "Wait! We didn't even get to say hi yet!" As the engines neared the exit, Nia slipped off the track. The mine monster rolled toward her. "Wait, please! I only want to say hello!" "Hang on! You're not a monster at all," said Nia. Meanwhile, Thomas burst through the waterfall with the other engines. "Phew! That was close!" cried Percy. "Oh no! Nia! I think the monster got her!" Just then, Nia came through the waterfall, followed by the monster. "Don't be scared! This is Darcy, the driller! She's not a monster," said Nia. Darcy explained that she had been drilling tunnels, but they kept falling in because the beams weren't strong enough. "That's what all the shaking and rumbling was," said Thomas. "I know something that could help you," Thomas added. The engines took Darcy to Whiff's recycling plant. "These beams are perfect," Darcy exclaimed. "But it's going to take a lot of trips to get them all up the mountain." Thomas grinned. "We'll help you." The engines spent the rest of the afternoon carrying the steel beams up Lookout Mountain. At the end of the day, they found Sir Topham Hatt and Emily waiting for them. "We made you this flag in honor of your adventure," said Emily. "We rolled into a mystery and made adventure history," Thomas said. Everyone cheered. Mystery solved. The end. Not So Secret Mission. Based on a story by Peter Gaffney. Adapted by Katie Woolley. One sunny morning, Thomas rolled into Vickerston Square. Sir Topham Hatt was rehearsing his speech for a concert that night. "Welcome, my friends, to this musical extravaganza!" Suddenly, Sir Topham Hatt jumped and accidentally knocked over a street lamp. Then, one by one, all the street lamps fell down. Crash! "Oh my goodness," said Sir Topham Hatt. "This is a disaster." "I'll go and get new bulbs before anybody notices," said Thomas. Before long, Thomas bumped into Percy. "Hey, Thomas," said Percy. "What are you up to?" "Oh, hey, Percy," mumbled Thomas. "I'm, doing something special for Sir Topham Hatt." "Really?" shouted Percy. "What?" Thomas looked all around. "Shh, I'm trying to be quiet so Sir Topham Hatt isn't embarrassed." Then, without thinking, Thomas told Percy about the accident. Thomas's cheeks turned red. "Oh no, I wasn't going to tell anyone."
"Don't worry,"
said Percy.
"your mission is safe with me."
Then Percy had an idea.
"Let's be secret agents,"
he said, and they put on disguises so they wouldn't be recognized. Thomas and Percy crept toward Harwick to collect the light bulbs. Up ahead, Diesel was pulling Bruno along the tracks. Thomas and Percy slipped onto a side track to hide from them.
"This'll be fun,"
whispered Thomas. Percy giggled so much he knocked over a stack of oil drums. Bang! Crash! Clash! Diesel screeched to a halt. "Who's back there?" Bruno could see his friends, Thomas and Percy, hiding. Thomas and Percy blushed as they rolled onto the main track. "What's the matter?" asked Bruno. Percy blurted out the story of their secret mission for Sir Topham Hatt. "Sounds like fun," said Diesel. "Can we play too?" Diesel and Bruno jumped into a haystack and came out wearing straw wigs. They all went to Harwick to get new light bulbs for the concert. Then the friends headed back to Vickerston Square. Thomas, Percy, Diesel, and Bruno rolled through the countryside. Diesel zoomed ahead, pulling Bruno behind him, and Thomas sped up to join the race. As they came around the bend, they spotted Kana with Annie and Clarabelle. They were bringing the musicians who were going to play at the concert that night.
"Stop!"
shouted Thomas as he slammed on the brakes.
"We can't let them see us."
But Thomas was going too fast. He flew off the track and landed on the hillside. Diesel uncoupled from Bruno and caught Thomas just in time.
"Thanks, Diesel," said Thomas. "If you hadn't been there, those bulbs would have broken."
"If we hadn't been racing, you wouldn't have gone off the tracks at all," said Diesel bashfully. Percy tried to help them back onto the tracks, but they were stuck in the grass.
"What are you all doing down there?"
called a voice. Everybody looked up to see Carly and Sandy above them.
"We were playing and got stuck," said Thomas. "I wouldn't feel too bad about it," said Carly sheepishly. "Sandy and I fixed the wrong bridge today."
"It seems to me," said Bruno, "that if everybody feels embarrassed, maybe nobody needs to feel embarrassed." Carly and Sandy pulled the friends back onto the tracks. The friends were about to head off together when Thomas's wheel gave a loud creak. Diesel looked at Thomas's flatbed. "One of your wheels is bent." Thomas and Percy looked worried.
"What's in those crates anyway?"
asked Sandy. "Just some light bulbs," Thomas replied.
"Well, let's split them between us," said Carly.
It was dark by the time everybody rolled into Vickerston.
"I should take it from here," Thomas whispered. "Sir Topham Hatt is embarrassed about the accident, so he'd probably prefer you didn't all know."
"But we do know," said Bruno. Sir Topham Hatt was waiting for Thomas.
"Thomas, you're here. I still feel so embarrassed, but this is easy enough to fix."
He put the first bulb into a street lamp.
"Only 6 more to go."
The light from the new bulb showed Percy waiting nearby.
"Percy," said Sir Topham Hatt, "what are you doing here?"
"I'm sorry," Thomas said. "I told Percy about what happened, and he came along to help." Then the second light bulb shone down on Carly and Sandy. And the third beamed brightly onto Bruno and Diesel.
"I guess everybody knows," said Sir Topham Hatt.
"You mean about you breaking those bulbs?" asked Bruno. "We all know about it. I don't understand why everyone is embarrassed. I broke something once, too."
"You're right, Bruno," agreed Sir Topham Hatt. "But it's hard not to feel embarrassed sometimes," said Thomas.
"True," said Sir Topham Hatt.
"I guess there's nothing to be embarrassed about." especially when you're among friends." Everybody laughed. Then they worked together to fix the street lamps just in time for the concert. The engines gathered round to listen to Sir Topham Hatt's speech. "Welcome, my friends, to this musical extravaganza!" he yelled. As the music began, Percy whispered to Thomas, "I think we make good secret agents." Thomas smiled. "What's our next mission?" The end. A Very Sodor Valentine's Day, based on a story by Alan Newworth, adapted by Alice Corey. "Toot, toot!" chuffed Percy cheerfully. "Why so chirpy this morning?" asked Thomas. "I get to deliver all the gifts and cards that make everyone so happy," replied Percy. Thomas chuckled. His best friend loved Valentine's Day. Soon, Percy and Thomas arrived at Whistling Woods Station, where a giant stack of gifts and cards was waiting for them. Percy gulped. "That's a lot of deliveries." "Let's get them packed up then, buddy," said Thomas. "I know you can do it," said Thomas, puffing alongside him. "You've already delivered me the best gift ever, being my best friend." Toot, toot! Percy traveled merrily along the tracks. Suddenly, he heard a loud noise. Psst! Percy screeched to a halt. Diesel appeared. "I've got a Valentine's gift for Bruno. Will you give it to him for me?" It was a massive rock with a face painted on it. "Bruno is my best friend, and he rocks." When Diesel bounced the rock into the mail car, it landed with a thud and made Percy jump. Percy delivered cards and gifts all over Sodor and Vickerstone. Everyone was so happy. Soon, he arrived at McCall's farm. When Farmer McCall handed out boxes of chocolates to his children, they jumped and squealed with joy. At the maintenance yard near Tidmouth Sheds, Sandy suddenly popped out at him. "Happy Valentine's Day, Percy. Could you please deliver my special Valentine's gift to Carly?" But Percy still had so many things left to deliver. "Please, Percy," said Sandy. How could Percy say no? But when he saw the gift, he wished he had said no. It was 3 huge barrels of crane boom grease. "Wow," said Percy. "Those look super heavy. I'm not sure." Sandy looked up at him with her big eyes. Percy's heart melted. "Okay," he said. "Load them onto my second car." Percy's next delivery was a top hat-shaped Valentine's gift for Sir Topham Hatt. But as Percy was leaving the station, a troublesome truck stopped him. "Hey, Percy," called the truck, "can you help me deliver my Valentine's gift? It's a heart-shaped wheel." "You do know that no one can roll on that, don't you?" said Percy. "It's the thought that really counts," replied the troublesome truck. Percy smiled and chugged on his way until... "Psst," whispered Annie as she rolled toward him. "Come closer, dear. I wrote a poem for Clarabelle, and I want you to deliver it. But I want it to be a surprise." Percy took the poem from her. Then he heard another whisper. Psst. This time it was Clarabelle. She had a poem for Annie. Percy delivered gifts across the island all day. Just when he thought he'd finished delivering all the presents and cards, he remembered his second mail car was still full of goodies to deliver to his friends. Percy zoomed off to deliver all the special Valentine's things to his friends. Thomas caught up with him, and the best friends chuffed along happily together. But Percy's steam clouds covered up a warning sign next to the tracks. Percy zoomed right past the sign. He didn't notice the track drop away beneath him until it was too late. When he finally came to a stop, Percy looked back to check on his cars. The first one was still attached, but the second, which was full of all the cards and gifts for his friends, had broken off and sunk into the mud.
"Oh no! I've ruined Valentine's Day," Percy muttered.
Thomas soon caught up with Percy.
"What's wrong?"
Percy explained everything.
"At least you're okay,"
said Thomas. Thomas and Percy went to find Diesel and Bruno and explained everything to them. Percy came forward shyly. He said sorry and then started to sing to Bruno.
"Diesel had a rock for you that got all splashed with mud, but 'cause you really rock his world, you'll always be his bud."
Diesel grinned and Bruno gave him a loving bump. Then Percy sang a song for Carly.
"Sandy sent some grease to you to make your lifting smoother, and 'cause you always lift her up, your friendship really moves her."
Sandy and Carly cuddled sweetly. Next, Percy sang a special song to Annie and Clarabelle.
"I wish I hadn't lost your poems, which both were works of art, but you two are so very close, nothing can pull you apart."
Annie and Clarabelle giggled. Finally, Percy sang a special song to the troublesome trucks.
"For Valentine's, you sent your pal a funny heart-shaped wheel, but all that really matters is you showed him how you feel."
The trucks happily made bad jokes together as Percy and Thomas left.
"Bruno really would have loved that rock,"
Percy told Thomas as they headed back towards the sheds.
"If we all work together, we could pull the truck out of the mud,"
Sandy said. Heave ho! After a lot of pulling and heaving, Percy's mail car was finally out of the mud, presents and all. Percy was so happy.
"Wow," he said. "Thanks. You sure know how to make an engine feel loved."
And with that, all the engines started to sing. It's not about the gifts, it's how they make us feel. That's what really matters. That's what's really real. It was the best Valentine's Day ever. The end. Rockslide Warning, based on a story by Daniel Scher Strom, adapted by Claire Seepy. Diesel and Thomas zoomed toward Bruno. "You'll never catch me, Thomas," shouted Diesel.
"We're playing train tag," Thomas told Bruno. "Do you want to play?"
"It's not very orderly," said Bruno. "You all keep bumping into each other."
"That's the whole point," said Carly. "You tag someone and then get away from them fast."
Diesel raced off again, but Bruno couldn't catch him. "Not fast enough," teased Diesel. "Give me a break. Get it?" joked Bruno.
"Because you're a brake car. Good one," said Percy.
Just then, Gordon arrived, towing a new light for the lighthouse.
"Gather round, everyone," he said. "We have an urgent delivery."
"But there are no deliveries scheduled for right now," Bruno said.
"You're right, Bruno. But the lighthouse above Vickerston isn't working," replied Gordon. "I need someone strong and fast to get there before sundown. Diesel, I want you to take the light. Bruno, you can go with Diesel to keep him safe."
"Let's get going," shouted Diesel.
"What's the fastest route, Bruno?"
"Let me think," replied Bruno. "The fastest route would be through Crumble Canyon, but..." Before Bruno could explain that he'd seen a warning about rock slides in Crumble Canyon, Diesel coupled to him in the flat car carrying the light. Then he roared out of the yard. "I don't think Diesel was listening to Bruno," Thomas said to the other engines. He looked at the schedule map and saw the warning sign for Crumble Canyon. Uh-oh. Diesel, we shouldn't be going this way, said Bruno nervously as they approached Crumble Canyon. There have been rock slides. I'm not scared of a few falling rocks, boasted Diesel as he sped toward the canyon. Thomas finally caught up with Diesel and Bruno in the canyon as rocks started to tumble around them. Diesel, falling rocks are dangerous, Thomas puffed. Bruno is right. You need to stop. I can outrun a couple of old rocks. Diesel raced forward as a large boulder fell toward the track in front of him. Watch out, shouted Thomas. Stop! Bruno slammed on his powerful brakes. Screech! Diesel and Bruno halted as the boulder hit the track. Phew, that was close. Thanks, Bruno, said Diesel. Uh-oh. With all the commotion, more rocks had come loose. They crashed around Diesel and Bruno, blocking both tracks and trapping them in the canyon. Even more rocks tumbled into the canyon and piled up across the tracks. Bruno, Diesel, are you all right? Thomas called out. Don't worry, cried Diesel. We won't be stuck for long. I'll just smash these rocks out of the way. Diesel rammed the rocks hard, but they wouldn't budge. Thomas could hear Bruno talking quietly. We're going to be late delivering the light. That means the boats will be late getting to the docks. Bruno, said Thomas, would it help to tell me about the schedule? Yes, said Bruno. As he talked, he started to feel calmer. Bruno, I'm going to get help so that we can fix all of this and deliver the light on time, said Thomas before he rushed off. In the meantime, Bruno thought he should cheer up Diesel. Hey, Diesel, do you know why I sometimes lose my train of thought? Diesel shook his head. Because I get on the wrong track, joked Bruno. Diesel cracked a smile. I'm just too fast. I've got to slow down, he said. Fast and slow, said Bruno thoughtfully. Yes, that's the answer. When you were going fast and I was going slow, all the noise made the rocks fall, Bruno explained. So if we do it again, we might make the rocks fall off the tracks, said Diesel. Let's do it! Diesel pulled while Bruno pressed on the brakes. Their wheels smoked and the tracks sparked. At last, the screeching noise sent the piles of rocks tumbling off the tracks. Bruno, it worked, shouted Diesel. Let's roll. We have a light to deliver. When Thomas, Sandy, and Carly returned to the canyon, Bruno and Diesel had disappeared. Even though their friends didn't need rescuing after all, they still needed to move the rocks. At once, Sandy and Carly set to work clearing the tracks. Diesel and Bruno raced away from Crumble Canyon toward Vickerston. We did it! Now, let's light up this lighthouse, said Diesel. Bruno, thanks to you, I've realized that going fast isn't always best, said Diesel, grinning at his friend. It's good to be different, replied Bruno. We can be ourselves, slow and fast, and still help each other. As the sun set, the two little engines stopped to watch the lighthouse shine its new light out across the sea. I'm glad we got the lighthouse fixed, but can we play train tag now? Asked Diesel. It's not time yet, said Bruno. Diesel looked confused, but before he could ask what Bruno meant, Thomas, Sandy, and Carly rolled up. You made it! How did you get out? Asked Thomas. We went fast and slow, replied Bruno. Fast and slow? Is that a thing? Asked Sandy. It's definitely a thing, said Diesel. And can we play tag now? Bruno, where are you? While the engines had been talking, Bruno had uncoupled himself from Diesel and had moved quietly along the track, hooking up to Thomas. Yes, we can. And you're it, Diesel. Bruno tagged Diesel and raced away. All the engines laughed.
"Aw, man, he may be a brake car, but that was some quick thinking," grinned Diesel. "Okay, Bruno, game on!"
The end.